Hello and welcome to the next instalment of modes. So what we were doing is we looked at each previous shape, all of the 5 shapes, and now what I'm going to do in the next series is just suggest a few practice strategies to get you through. So we've looked at all of the parts, but the thing is it's important to see all of the parts as part of a bigger system. So this is purely a mechanical approach. It's not really based with improvisation for this particular busy, just to make sure you've got the bare essential mechanics to make all of this work. I would continue, so if I was going to practice, this is what I would do. I would continue with the warm-up exercise. And then the next one. So maybe do each exercise for about a minute each, just looping them, just get your fingers warmed up, and it's unconsciously preparing them for what's ahead. Then the next thing to do is play through all the scale shapes and relate them to the chord. So what I would do first, so I'll stick to the key of G. I'm just going to quickly establish my chords. That's all the major and minor chords. There's an extra chord there, but I'm not going to worry about it. And then I'm just going to end there on the octave. Okay, so those are the chords that I need to worry about for the sake of this exercise, just to make sure I can form these scale shapes around the chord shape. So I would start, you'd play the chord shape, play the 7th shape, and then play through the scale shape. And then end playing the chord. So set the metronome, do a few loops, and just make sure that's under your fingers. Maybe repeat it 5 to 10 times, and then move on to the next shape. So you play the chord, play the minor 7th versions, and then play the next scale shape. Then move on to the next chord, the 3rd chord, play the chord, play the minor 7ths, and then play the next shape, which is the Phrygian shape. Then we're on to the 4th chord, which is major. So I'm going to play my 7th variations, and then play the scale shape. And now onto the 5th shape, which is major, and it's a dominant 7th. I'm going to play the mixed Lydian shape. And then the final shape, which is the minor. So I'm doing my minor chord, minor 7th, and this is the pure minor scale. And then if I put my little finger to the end, that tells me that we know it's the relative minor, so that's where the system starts again, and we've come back all the way full circle back to G, 1 octave up the neck. So that's a good practice strategy. Just warm the fingers up, do the warm-up exercises, and if you'll note, you'll see that they actually come from the 2nd chord and the 3rd chord, and then I suppose one space up. So it kind of connects the dots. So these exercises are related to fitting into that system. So that's, as I say, so that's it's a fairly mechanistic approach. What you also want to do is just spend some time slowly with each one of those scale shapes to make sure you can name the intervals. You don't have to do it forever. You know, once you're comfortable with that, you know the intervals and you can name them. You know, then just drop it. You don't need to worry about it. Now, the other thing that's important to practice, we've done it in the key of G. That's really useful because it really lays it out in the net really nicely. But then what tends to happen, you get very comfortable with playing in one key. So it's also useful to be able to play in other keys. So maybe for a week you play in the key of G, you're comfortable with that, and then you say, okay, I'm going to move the maps around, and then pick another key and start again. Now what happens is the maps shift around a little bit. So if I pick something like the key of B, so my starting point is I've got to establish where my chords are, so I know where I'm going to build my scale shape. So first chord, second chord, third chord, fourth chord, fifth chord. Right, now I'm starting to get into trouble. I've gone really high up the net, things are looking a bit cramped. So what you do is, it's the 12th fret there, it's 2 frets up, and that corresponds with the open frets here and 2 frets up. So if I play this chord, I can move it down an octave. So I'll play the 5th chord there, 6th chord, and we know that's the relative minor, so we're back home again to B. If I wanted to play the extra chord, so that's how you would negotiate it. So what happens is basically that this is, you work your way up the net to somewhere, and when it starts getting ridiculous, you shift down, and then you just work your way back up to shape 1 again. So shape 1 is still kind of like the key center, as it were. So you just work up the scale until you get to a point you think, okay, that's enough, and then shift it down an octave and work your way back up again. And then you just, in terms of scales, you just build the scale shapes around it. So second shape. Oops. Now I'm going to move it up. So what you need to do is so you choose a key center, you go up and down, you find all the major and minor chords in it, and then you just form the shapes around those shapes, around the chords. And they always go in the same order: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Obviously, what you're having to do is, you know, shift the shapes up and down accordingly. But basically, you just move up until it gets silly, then just move it down an octave, and then progress your way up to back to where you started. And that's how you would negotiate, you know, playing in different keys. And it's good to practice. And as I say, I'm guilty of this myself. It's easy to, you know, you find a place that's nice to play in, and then you forget to change it around a bit. And then you get to the pub jam session or whatever, and you find you're really bad at playing in another key. So, you know, practice in other keys. Okay, the next video we're going to look at more improvisation, and we're going to change it around a bit. We're going to look at modes as more as a view, so the mode is a thing in its own right. as opposed to being overly concerned about what is the parent key center for the mode. Okay, see you in the next video.